which is the annual budget deliberations. And continuing on through the program, we're now up to 1E, which is capital renewals. And we have a few of those extra motions to go through. And we will start with G, where the council reduced the operational professional service budget by $500,000 for the 26-27 annual budget, and the footpath renewals budget be increased by $500,000 ongoing from the 26-27 annual budget, subject to annual budget reviews. That's moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by myself. So I'll go to you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, colleagues. Welcome back after the lunch break. This recommendation attempts to kill two birds with one stone, so I hope you can hear out where I'm coming from here. Throughout our consultation document, we asked the community a question. We have a deficit in our spend on footpaths. What would you like us to see us do about it? Either status quo, leave it as it is, spend $500,000 a year and bring that deficit backlog forward, or bring the time that it would take to deal with it down. Would you like $1 million, or would you like $1.5 million? 58% of the community came back in support of somewhere between $500,000 to $1.5 million. Of the 42% that said we prefer the status quo, reading through those submissions, the vast majority of them, or certainly a lot of them, said, we think this is important, but you should just do it out of your own budgets. There shouldn't be money on top of rates, which I can understand where people were coming from. And I think I said at the time, it was always my intention that we'd be able to find savings in our own budgets to pay for this as, in my belief, what is a core service to our community. So I felt, reading the submissions and certainly seeing the feedback, 58% explicitly supported it, and a portion on top of that would also have supported it had it been able to be taken out of our current budgets. And so where does this come from? There's been clear previous direction from council to cap the professional services budget. We've done that every year for the last 2, if not 3 years. We did the long-term plan. We pared it back $1 million and then put a cap on it. Last year, we pared it back $1 million and put a cap on it. And so the idea here is officers have identified already through their own means $300,000 of savings in professional services. This $500,000 takes us to $800,000 in total. So not quite $1 million as we've done in previous years, but certainly I think it goes far enough toward not only limiting our reliance and our spend on professional services, but also, helpfully in my opinion, putting a cap on it, which forces our organisation to think incredibly carefully about where and when we use professional services. I think we've all seen, and we can all think of our own examples of reports that have come from external contractors or meetings that have been facilitated by external contractors that we've wondered, could this not have been done in-house? And so there's definitely opportunity there for us to utilise that budget better, and it's an ongoing trend that I would seek to continue and seek your support to continue of the last 2 years, that we do put downward pressure on our professional services budget to limit that in our organisation. So why would we do this in terms of the footpaths? The first thing I'd say is I think it is an embarrassment, the state of our footpaths, particularly for those with disabilities in our community who have mobility challenges, and particularly for our seniors, although not only. In my time as councillor, I've had mums pushing prams around our streets who've had the pram fall over and gone, thank God my baby was strapped in, because it would have been a lot uglier otherwise. We've had people on wheelchairs come into the chamber and submit to us about how hard it is to get around our roads and around our footpaths and over our roads. And so, although I would like to go further, I'd like to say, yes, let's do the full 1.5 million councillors, and certainly if somebody wants to put that up, that's your prerogative, but I think to reduce the backlog from 16 years to 11, which is still far too long, but it sets us on the right pathway, would go some way toward improving satisfaction with our footpaths in the community and improving the user experience in our community. Our satisfaction with our footpaths throughout the city has dropped from above 51% in 2019 down to 36% in 2025. So we're seeing a clear trend in our resident survey of dissatisfaction with the state of our footpaths and dissatisfaction with their deterioration. Only 33% of our footpaths are in good condition or excellent condition. The remainder, 52% are average and 15% are poor or very poor. And certainly my goal is for our footpath network to be one that is usable for all people in our community. Goodness, you don't have to look too far to see the scars on people's faces and hands and arms where they've been out walking and have tripped over and hurt themselves. So I wouldn't purport, it'd be wrong to say this is going to fix it all and we'll be in a great state in 2 years' time. But if we don't start the work now, when will we start it? I think this is a cost-neutral, sensible way to get us on the right track. It's an area of work that councils have supported previously, and so I hope you can support us heading in this direction. Look forward to the debate.
Councillor Barrett.
Yeah, thanks. Couple questions. Just as the movers indicated, it's cost neutral. Is it also rates neutral in terms of the way that the funding works across professional services and capital renewal?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, because the renewal program's worked on a 3-year rolling average, and we've used the assumption that this would be $500,000 each year, that would have a $500,000 rates impact in a year, so it will be rates neutral as far as I
Great,
aware at this point.
Perhaps to the mover, the latter part of it, talking about subject to annual budget reviews, is that annual budget review purely focused on the footpath renewals, or is it focused as well on professional services?
Oh, sorry.
Happy to answer that, Councillor. So that's purely referring to the footpath renewals budget. So the reason for that is in our consultation document, we said if you invested this much, it would reduce the backlog down to these amount of years, assuming that you would do it each year. However, we can't just refer it into the next budget and say it will be an extra 500,000 every year forever on. So we've got to refer it to those budgets, but it would be up to councillors in those given years if they wanted to find areas to offset or not. But this is referring to the footpath component specifically.
Thank you.
Councillor Harpiter.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a question to the Chief Executive. What's the impact of reducing the operational professional services budget by 500,000?
Through the Chair, I just might check with Cam on that one as well, because there is a split in the professional services about some of our professional services we receive revenue back from in that as well. Hopefully you might be able to just cover that off.
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor. So if I look at the professional services as a whole, about 9 million of it is either for things that are revenue, have revenue attached to it, are loan funded, or things like the audit costs and that sort of stuff that we are legislatively required to do. Within there's also some in there for some of your strategic priorities, like Te Tanganui, the regional freight ring road, and the like. And so the remainder for the rest of the business is about 5 million.
So will that impact, back to the Chief Executive, will that impact that 500,000, the rest of the priorities that are in that professional services budget?
Yeah, through the Mayor, yes it will. So if you're going to ask me what specifically it will impact, I won't be able to tell you that off the top of our head, but any reduction in professional services means that, what it would probably simply mean is that if we required some additional professional services for a specific project and we didn't have the funding there for it, we would just bring it back through the chamber.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor.
Kia ora, Your Worship. A question to the CE via you, Your Worship, just to ask if we reduced professional services and there was an assumption that we would offer in-house professional advice and guidance, would that be an impact or a requirement to increase the professional learning development so that staff could have a continuous learning culture and develop skills and expertise in an area that they haven't necessarily had the opportunity to develop?
Yes, through the Mayor. Generally, the professional services, we already do have learning development programs in place across the organisation. Generally, the professional services are purchases for one-off things that we don't have a specific skill set for a very set period of time. So I think about things like geotechnical advice or those sorts of things, and generally that sort of is where that portion of the professional services goes towards. So no impact on our current learning and development programs. As a result of doing this, it does mean that some specific skills that we might not have in-house that we do need to purchase, we may not have the ability to do. We might have to bring something back here.
Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This recommendation is very much two parts, and I'll speak to them separately. In terms of the footpath renewals, I am actually supportive of investing in that space, and the feedback that we heard, although a large amount of it was status quo, as Councillor Woods already outlined, there was support for us improving that, and particularly for the disability community. I hear feedback all the time that is really important. In terms of the principle, what I also heard through those submissions was, you know, do this, but you should be doing that out of your existing budgets. And I understand that's the motivation of why that's been attached to the professional services here. Just to give councillors advanced notice, Councillor Fitzgerald and I have withdrawn recommendation I following the answers to questions earlier. So I won't be pursuing those reductions in the renewal space, but had originally intended, or my attempt was to try and find some savings in the renewal space to help offset the footpaths. At this point, it doesn't seem that's going to be a very easy thing to accomplish, but my intent coming here today is in the hope that we can respond to many of the much of the feedback that we got from our community to actually give some rates relief, because people are really struggling at this time. So I am really interested in finding some rates reductions, as well as being able to deliver on the footpath renewal desire from our community, which I think has been made clear. So in order to, at this point of the day, there's a number of other recommendations that we're yet to consider, which may or may not deliver a reduction, but without knowing what the outcome is for those, I would like to move an amendment to the professional services budget to have that changed to 700,000. That's Councillor Fitzgerald is happy to second that, to test a slightly bigger reduction in the professional services. And just to speak to that briefly, I think my observation is that it has been, a positive thing to put a cap and reduce down that professional services budget, which I believe had got quite inflated. But my observations at the moment is that we're still getting reports through that some of which are quite expensive, which I do not believe adds value and is not good use of ratepayer money. So I would be very comfortable to have that reduced down further. So that is why I want to test the room on the 700. Yes, I'll leave it there. I'm moving that as an amendment, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else want to speak to the amendment first? Okay, all right, just a moment. One moment, caller. Okay, I'll go with you first, Councillor Harpiter.
I'm going to speak against the amendment. I was pretty iffy on the 500,000, but now that it's 700,000, I'm nearly going to choke. So 500,000 I could just about wear, but going to 700,000, I think it's just far too far. So I think I won't support 700,000. I won't support the amendment of 700,000. So I just think we're pushing the officers too far. We're pushing into that budget too far, the professional services budget. So I think you can't take too much, and I think we're taking too much out of that professional services budget. So I won't support 700,000.
Councillor Johnson.
Just a question at this stage about the linking of the two things. I think it might be the first time I've seen this. Is process-wise, it makes it difficult if you support one and not another? I mean, is there any advice from governance or the CE on this kind of motion and whether or not we'd be better off to separate it into two parts?
Yeah, okay, one moment.
Not in the same thing, we've done this consecutively. Mm.
Well, you could A and B, you could A and B it, so you do A and then you do B.
I think it's just good practice.
You could do the council A, reduce this, and then B, increase that. So then you could separate A and B to be voted on separately.
So how is that different from having two separate?
Because it gives you the chance to vote on the two, rather than just voting on one as a package. I had thought about that, perhaps, but if one goes through another, it doesn't really work.
But how's that any different having them two as two?
I'm getting advice that it is okay. You are right, it is new, but it is okay.
Okay, well, can I have a comment on the amendment then? And on the amendment and on the whole concept. First of all, I don't support the amendment because it seems that every year we have a reduction in the professional services budget, and staff were quite clear when the question was asked by Councillor Naylor prior to this debate about the potential impacts of reducing the professional services budget further and further. And some of those impacts are around reduced access to specialist technical and advisory support, slower progress on regulatory and reform-driven work programmes, increased delivery risk, particularly where internal capacity is supplemented by external expertise, potential downstream cost pressures if work is deferred or issues are not addressed early, poor decisions made as a result of inadequate information being available to make good decisions. So I think there's a fairly strong warning in that. You can't keep cutting budgets every single year and expect to still get the same level of advice and service. We're already seeing delays in some of the policy work being progressed. We've seen a lot of pressure on the planning team, and we've got the most number of plan changes going through at the moment than we've had for many a long year, and some of those require specialist technical advisory reports, the sorts of expertise that we don't have on council because we're not needing it on a regular basis. So I'm opposed to cutting the professional services budget significantly again. I'd support the footpath renewals budget being increased, but I don't really think that I can, I can't vote for the whole thing because of the way that they're linked. So my advice would be to those who've put this up, both the amendment and the original, to separate them out, because I think we all want to see increased investment in footpaths, but I'm not going to support further attacks on the professional services budget. I'm already seeing the consequences of that in terms of policy development, in terms of planning.
Okay, Councillor Dennison, you were speaking to the amendment?
Yeah, I'm good without having my question, but I want to speak against the amendment. I think Councillor Harper put it quite briefly and succinctly that it's step too far, and I'm comfortable with the 500. I think Councillor Johnson raises a really good point around linking the hand and glove. Take it away on one hand and give it on the other is kind of what this is, and I'd rather have a true two separation. Put one recommendation, then put the other. I think otherwise it encourages anyone else to do the old pick and mix match, and it just loses some of the flavour, and I think they're just pure recommendations before us. But it's a step too far. I think all the other points are well made. Thank you.
Okay, just to the amendment, I'll go to you, Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, sir. Look, I don't support the amendment, but I can stomach 500. I like finding money from other places. Look, I think for a long time, councils in this room have sweated footpath in the city, and we need to find $20 million to fix what we've got. So, you've got to start somewhere, and you can't keep on doing what we're doing. It's only going to get worse, and yeah, people are getting hurt, and that's not good. So we need to do better. Thank you.
Councillor Fitzgerald, do you want to speak to the amendment? Okay.
Thank you. Look, I'm relatively comfortable either way on this, but the fact of it is clear that our community, stomach a rates increase as high as we proposed, and we do need to find cost efficiencies somewhere. And if we vote down every amendment for them, then you're not going to have a palatable rates rise at the end. Professional services and consulting and sort of costs is one of the areas that is quite common in public submissions of saying they want us to do less on. So I think this is a sensible reduction. But either way, I will obviously vote for the amendment and then for the other one should the amendment fail. Thank you.
Okay, back to you, Councillor Naylor.
Oh, thank you, Mr Mayor. It was just really a clarification of process because Standing Orders 2.12.11 does give an elected member the ability to request for a motion to be taken in parts. So the advice is probably different now.
The advice is the same, we'll deal with the amendment, then we'll go back to the...
The advice is the same. We're dealing with the amendment and then we'll go back to the substantive. Yeah. So your right to reply. Yeah. Okay. All right. We've got the amendment there around reducing the operational or professional services budget by 700 for the 26-27 annual budget, and then the footpath renewals budget be increased by 500, subject to annual budget reviews. All right, we'll vote on that, please. Just the amendment. And that has failed. 5 votes for and 11 against. Okay, we'll go back to the substantive there. Councillor Wood.
I was just going to say, if councillors wanted it before we carry on the debate to be separated into two, I'm comfortable for that to happen. As a one, that counts reduce the operational yada yada, and then two, footpath renewals be.
Yep.
If you're happy with that, Mr Mayor.
I'm okay with this a second. I read the room.
Yep.
Yep.
And I'll leave it for a right reply later if.
Anybody else want to speak on the substantive? We're just going to give us a moment and we'll separate it. All right, does anybody else want to speak to either? Okay, Councillor Barrett.
I would like to speak, but now it feels like GA is in the wrong category because it's actually an OPEX rather than a capital renewal.
Yeah, it is. We're just going to deal with it. It is in the wrong category, but
Right.
we'll reflect it in the wider picture.
No, cool, that's great. A few comments on this. Firstly, I did want to congratulate Councillor Wood and colleagues. There was a very clear and I'd say somewhat successful effort to find and amplify the voices in the community that really wanted to see a whole lot of nothing. And to not only do that, but also find a majority of voices that were at least willing to acknowledge that footpaths needed more investment than they've had historically, I thought was quite a magical job of finding the sweet spot. So well done, Councillor Wood. Within a background of a cacophony of desire to cut, slash, remove, etc., we found some appetite for at least one area of new investment around footpaths, and that's absolutely fantastic. I think it's further fantastic that it's now been separated, given that I was rather uncomfortable with the holding of one to ransom so that we could then provide resource for another. I thought that was quite an unfortunate pairing, actually. So do respect and appreciate your willingness to listen to the room on that. I think that issues raised around the professional services side are quite interesting, because that's not the first time that this table's kind of come to this point in debate and then said, oh, well, let's take a big axe out and swing it at professional services. Obviously, what will happen over time will be a training response whereby staff will go, oh, well, we know we're going to get the axe, so we're going to pad that out. I think that's really inappropriate. I think we need to listen to the direct advice that we've had, which was clearly articulated by Councillor Johnson, around the risks and the issues that we're already experiencing and facing in the regulatory space, in the planning spaces, and ensure that we do have operational and professional services budget. I might draw our attention to yesterday's announcement, where we have 90 days to throw everything up in the air and then land it. I would suggest that there may be a little bit of scope in there for professional services to contribute to those conversations. And so I'm not comfortable with that idea that we swing the axe on that for a fairly generic reason of just wanting less. I am much more comfortable with the support of the footpaths. It's an area that, again, I commend Councillor Wood on driving that conversation out into the community, and it was really good getting that feedback consistently, that we actually do need to fix the state of that very key part of the transport network. So appreciate the opportunity to contribute to the discussions here. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else want to participate? Okay, Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. I think I followed, and I think you were insulting me, but I'm not quite sure. But I think that's what was going on. But that's all right. That's all right. There's a few things I want to say here. Firstly, we cannot just magic $9 million of consultancy budget away and go, oh, no, that bit of consultancy budget doesn't count. It's not real, councillors, because the community's paying for it through the on-charging that we do. So that doesn't exist. We're only dealing with $5 million. Nonsense. Utter nonsense. Every single dollar that we pass on to our community in professional services is a dollar that somebody else in this city pays. And so I am not at all interested in the magic accounting that actually we're only talking about $5 million here. That is silly. That is silly, in my opinion. And what are the risks and issues that we're facing today? We cut $1 million last year. We cut $1 million the year before, and what is the terrible, tumultuous state of our council that we're still spending 130 grand on 60-page consultants' reports? That we still have external facilitators coming in to run our workshops because apparently we can't run them ourselves. So no, my heart doesn't bleed that we don't have enough money for consultants. It truly doesn't. I do not believe we should have $0 in professional services. I don't think any councillor here does. Of course there are going to be activities where it is more cost appropriate and cost effective to bring someone in with a particular skill set. But we have found ourselves in a position as a council reliant on it. And we have seen, in my opinion, and in my observation, very few negative consequences in the last 2 years, bar perhaps that some councillors wanted some policy work to go a bit faster. Bar that, any time there has been an opportunity for an increase in revenue, increase in professional services, officers have brought it to the chamber, and every time we have approved it. So this still gives us flexibility. Now, the reason that I wanted to connect the two of them is not to hold one to ransom for the other, but because I know for many people in our community, as a direct result of submissions, they said exactly that they wanted us to find ways that we could manage that cost within our own budget. And we are here to respond to the submissions that we get. And so my thought was, rather than taking out of the renewal space, this would be an area that the councillors had a shown willingness in the chamber to support before to this kind of scale, certainly to $1 million in the last 2 years. And so I thought it would be a good way of showing the community that we've listened to you and we've found a way that we can reprioritise the money. Now, I hear what you're saying, that some of you want to do one without the other, and that's your choice. I've got no problem with them being taken as A and B. But what I would encourage you to do, councillors, is that the majority of our community were in favour of us spending this money, and the majority of our community, of those who were sceptical, wanted to see us reprioritising it from somewhere else. So, in my opinion, this was a sensible way that we could kill two birds with one stone, and hopefully, I was thinking in the end anyway, save ourselves a bit of time, but we've had a good debate about it. So, please, councillors, let's walk and chew gum at the same time. Let's get both these things sorted out in a cost-neutral way for our community.
Okay, point of order, okay.
Point of order, Mr Mayor. 2.16.4D, misrepresentation. Was not a majority of our community that said that. It was a majority of those who submitted.
Okay, that's fair comment. Okay. All right, so we've got G, A, and around reducing the operational professional services budget by $500,000. So we'll vote on that one first, please. And that has passed 14 votes for and 2 against. Right, we'll move through to G. Was G, wasn't it? Yes, GB. The council footpath renewals budget be increased by $500,000 ongoing 26-27 annual budget, subject to annual budget reviews. Okay, we will vote on that. And that has passed 16 votes for and none against. All right. We'll now move to H. And this is around council in answering submission 128. This is around council prioritising $100,000 in program 18727 for improvements at Farnham Park in the annual budget 26-27 in partnership with and recognition of Order Connect's contribution of $100,000 to the project. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm really hoping this one is less contentious than the last one, primarily because we're not looking at any additional money. This is about prioritisation within existing budgets in response to a request from the community and in recognition of a significant community contribution to that project of $200,000. So in the interest of efficiency and in line with our waste minimisation strategy, I can recycle some comments people have already made. It's simply about listening to our community. Councillor Barrett, Mr Mayor, it's backing an organisation that wants to do stuff. Councillor Johnson, it's a request from the community, relatively easy to fulfil. It benefits a large number of people. And Councillor Naylor, it's a respond to feedback from our community. So I imagine, since you've all said those things already, you'll all be happy to support it. Thank you.
Pretty hard act to follow, isn't it? Okay. Is anybody game enough to speak? No. Okay, we're going to vote. That has passed 16 votes for and none against. Okay, we're going to do the substantive now around renewals. I'll get that up on screen. Okay, we're just one moment. It's coming. Okay. So 1E, that council instruct the CE to prepare a draft annual budget for 26-27, consideration adoption of council at our meeting on the 3rd of June 26, and that it incorporates the following capital renewal programs, including carry forwards and amendments as outlined in the annual budget 2026-27, schedule of proposed capital renewal programs, attachment 8, and any motions agreed above. I'm happy to move, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Don't think there's any need for commentary. We will vote, please. It's passed 15 votes for and 1 against. Okay, we now move on to our next subsector, which is operating budgets. And we have J, and this is around council cap, the remuneration budget at 65.3 million for the 2026-27 financial year. This being a 3% increase from the 25-26 year, moved by Councillor Naylor. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First, I just want to start by saying that staff are our absolute most valuable asset, and I appreciate the hard work that goes into everything that our staff do. And it's our responsibility to ensure that they are well looked after. And part of that, in my view, is approving an appropriate envelope each year for their remuneration. At the same time, we need to really consider the funders of that, being our community, and the feedback we get from them, and the feedback about how they feel their ability to pay. And certainly we've had some very strong and clear submissions with those of our community who are really struggling. And that's no surprise given the latest economic report to our Finance Committee showed that the average wage increase in Palmerston North to the year ending December 31st is 0.5%, so 0.5%. So in light of that, and I would like to draw your attention to page 107, where it does outline the personnel costs, this year being 63.3 million. Our annual budget draft was consulted at 65.7, and then there's an additional 0.2 for an additional position, which has actually been offset through the professional services budget. But our long-term plan figure there that we had indicated was 64.8. Now, the proposed increase from this year to next year amounts to around 4.1%. What I'm proposing is 600,000 less than that, which is at about 3.2%. Now, it's still, so I'm proposing 65.3, so it's still $500,000 more than our LTP budget. And the reasons for that are twofold. One being, I think you might recall, there was just under 100,000 additional required by the government for KiwiSaver. There was also this other position, and I think when we looked at it at the end of last year, there was some of that increase that was offset by additional revenue, and I just wanted to state that and recognise that, which is why I have gone for 3.2% rather than anything less. I think it's appropriate in terms of the feedback that we've got from our community to consider this envelope. The second thing about this resolution is that it does provide a cap, and reflecting on this year where we've had a cap, I have had feedback that that has been a useful thing in making sure that there's the discipline to operate within that cap. Prior to that, we have had sometimes that, well, previous year that budget was overrun by about $2 million, and really as elected members there was nothing that we could do about that because we hadn't put any of those sort of parameters in place. So I hope that's clear. I'm happy to leave it at that, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, if I might ask a question of the CE just around impacts that this would have if it was successful.
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor. Yep, it's likely to have a, as you're aware, we take on board market and performance-related information each year as part of our remuneration exercise and come into budgets and those sorts of things. Highly likely, given the fact that we've also got some KiwiSaver changes that have legislative changes that have happened recently, they've been factored in as well. Also, we do have some almost the full complement of planners in now, so we have reduced professional services in relation to that activity as a result of bringing in planners into this space. But the impact area that would have on the remuneration budget is likely to be in the market and performance increase space.
Thanks. Would we be in a situation where we would potentially be carrying more vacancies as an organisation?
As a result of having a cap placed on us previously, that's what we have had to do. We've had to be very careful. What we do is we look at vacancies and recruitment, and so that is managed through the senior leadership team. So we have a look at that on a monthly basis, have a look at vacancies, understand the remuneration budget, and have looked to hold back vacancies in order to stay within the cap.
Thanks. And finally, if I might, then my understanding is that the resolution of council that did set a cap in place is enduring in terms of there being now a firm cap that would control costs, and the recommendation in front of us is really just more about where that cap should sit. Is that a correct interpretation, that there is an ongoing cap expectation?
You might wish to ask the mover that. I understand that that cap is for the next financial year. You may decide beyond on future financial years whether or not there are future caps put in place, but maybe that's a question for the mover.
My intent is that this is just a one-year decision.
Thanks. I probably didn't ask the question that clearly. My understanding was that we had an existing resolution on the books that required the chief executive to come back to the chamber if there was ever to be an exceedance of the remuneration budget. Is that not already the case?
Yeah, I'd have to have a look at the exact details of that recommendation as well, councillor, just to understand that a bit clearer. But and I'm just going to check with my team on that as well anyway, but as I understand it, is that we would have had to, and if we were looking like we were going to exceed the budget, we would have had to bring that back to you.
Great, thank you. Just briefly, on the basis of that, Mr. Mayor and colleagues, I'm not comfortable to support this as it's currently framed. And I think the main issue that I have with it is that it simply creates a situation where more and more vacancies are carried, and that is not actually conducive. The reality is that there's a market out there, an employment market that we operate in. So not only would we end up with carrying vacancies, we would end up with people looking for opportunities elsewhere, and I don't think that's the future of this city.
Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, I don't support this. I think that we already have discovered this year the number of vacancies that are being carried, and when we've asked why work hasn't been progressed, we've then found out that, there was a vacancy in that particular department, and therefore there was no one available to do the work. On the one hand, councillors are complaining about things not being done on time, and work coming back slowly, and targets not being met here and there. On the other hand, we're wanting to put a remuneration cap in, which would then effectively either cause the CE to carry vacancies or not be able to pay people at a rate to be able to retain them. And I don't think on the one hand you can say that our staff are our greatest asset, and then in the same breath say, but we're not going to pay them a market rate. So this just doesn't make sense to me, and it fundamentally goes against my principles to make savings on people's salaries in a cost of living crisis, and so I'm not going to support it.
Councillor Harper.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I can't support this. I think that asking us to do this for a team of staff that work for the council just doesn't fit well with me, so I definitely won't be supporting this recommendation. We're looking at a lot of recommendations over the next 2 days, but this isn't one I will support. I think it's not one that sits very well with me, so I definitely won't be supporting it. Thank you.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you. I'll be supporting this. In fact, I think 3% is even probably a little high given the market conditions of what most people's pay has been increasing over the past 12 months in the community. So I think, 3% would be very pragmatic and fair in the current environment. Thank you.
Councillor Kiru.
I've just got a question through the Mayor, if that's all right. So with this cap, would that give you, the CE, the discretion to maybe give an employee 0.5 and another employee 7 still? 7% increase? So you'd still have the ability to... So it's a total budget. That's a question. Are you gonna...
It's, you have some interesting
I'm going to do a
questions,
hospital
councillor.
pass on this one, my mate.
Sarah Morris, GM People and Capability. So as everything HR, it's complex. Most councils, including ourselves, run a dual part to our remuneration. One is market value, which is what's been alluded to a lot here, making sure people are not falling behind the market value of the role that they do. That carries a different percentage weight, you know, from that full 3 or 4%, wherever you land. There is a performance component that we do look at. However, the other thing to remember is living wage is going up by nearly $1 in a couple of months, and that will have an impact on how we pay people as well, given that we are a living wage council. Usually your market movement is the greater proportion of your percentage that you set aside. Thank you.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought I'd start with a few submissions. Number 54 from Rob. I and many others have not received a pay rise more than 2% in the last 2 years, and we're all going backwards. From Rochelle, some of us haven't had pay rises in years. The cost of living skyrocketed with the price of fuel. You would be increasing hardship on people that are already struggling significantly. It's really tone deaf to put this out there. From Wayne, Submission 101, makes me think what the council is thinking. When was the last time anyone had a 4% pay increase? No one. Why do the council think then that it's okay to increase our rates at a level that's higher than what ordinary working people receive in a pay review or a pay increase? From Charlene, Submission 267, people have had to suffer from no pay rises and the struggle's real. So when you come to me and go, oh, what was the wording? We're not going to pay our staff a market rate. Our own economic reporting showed that the average wage in Palmerston North went up 0.5% last year, and the New Zealand average was 1.4%. So 3.2 is actually 6 times the community's market rate of what they're getting. So I find it really hard to sit here and listen to councillors saying, oh, well, it doesn't matter that our community is struggling, or it doesn't matter that they've only had a 2% pay rise. We want 4.2%. It is not that I don't value our staff. It is not that I'm saying you should have a 0.5% pay rise. What I'm saying is this is still well in advance of what our community's getting. It's still well in advance of our long-term plan. I don't know if I can draw your minds back, councillors, to last year's annual budget, but we had a very similar motion come because the proposal was to increase our remuneration budget considerably ahead of our LTP, and we made the decision as a council to cap it at the LTP rate we'd approved. And so this still allows for movement ahead of what we'd planned for in our long-term plan. I think there is immense value in having a cap on the remuneration budget because just as our Chief Executive outlined, it gives the senior leadership team effectively pressure where every month they're reviewing what the remuneration package looks like, what the staffing levels look like. I accept that we've historically had a system where we pay the market rate. I would have thought that would take into account the market rate of the community, but also we're part of an ecosystem that if we're benchmarking ourselves against other councils, and everybody else is putting their rates up 4%, well, it's a self-fulfilling cycle. Good work, team. We're all paying ourselves 4% more, and therefore we're all meeting the benchmark rate. The benchmark I set myself against, and I think we should set ourselves against in this chamber, is what is our community getting? When the community is getting 0.5, I agree with the submitter that 4.2% is tone deaf. 3.2% is not harsh, it's not horrible, it's not nasty, it doesn't force the Chief Executive to carry huge vacancies. In fact, it gives the Chief Executive and his team immense scope to look at where we might be able to fill roles that we haven't filled in the past with such a significant increase to the tune of millions of dollars. It does give the Chief Executive, as Councillor Kuru rightly asked, can you determine where it goes? And that is absolutely within the remit of our team to make decisions about how that remuneration package is used. So, councillors, please, it was one of the clearest things that came through our submissions from those who were struggling was we're not getting huge pay rises can you please think of us? And I think this is an appropriate way to respond to it and a measured way to respond to it. So I hope you could support it.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hesitate to venture into this one because I don't want to start the deluge of points of order again. But I don't think I've heard any elected member saying it doesn't matter that our community is struggling. I have not heard that. I don't think there's anybody around this table who would say that, actually. So I will invite the member to withdraw that comment. Thank you. There's a danger here of a little bit of conflation of two things, I think. The cap on the remuneration budget is not the same thing as capping pay rises. So presenting this as, oh, it's a 3% pay rise and nobody in our community is getting a 3% pay rise, that's not what this says. Not what this says at all. The remuneration budget is the total package that the chief executive operates within to remunerate our staff. Some of that will include pay rises, absolutely. As to the comment that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, that we're in the local government ecosystem, 4% here drives 4% there, and on it goes, I offer into the debate that if we head for a 0.5% increase, then that also becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, that we drive down wage increases in our own community. We contribute to a cost of living crisis in our own community by changing the ecosystem, which requires a lower pay rise. Everybody gets to say, well, there's only 0.5% in it, and we become a low-wage economy, a low-wage city, which doesn't just affect our ability to recruit and retain staff, but affects all of our businesses across our city. And look at the problems we're already experiencing in the hospital, for example. I don't think driving a low-wage economy for our city is something that this council can afford to do. And so I won't be supporting this.
You're out of the queue. Okay. All right. Back to you, Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, colleagues, for those issues that you raised. In particular, I think Councillor Bowen just raised an issue which has alerted to me to the fact that perhaps if the seconder was happy, it may be appropriate to delete the part in brackets that says this being a 3% increase, because actually it's a bit more than 3%. It's what, 3.1 or 3.2. And in no way is the intent meant to be that that equates to a 3% wage increase for every staff member. So I wouldn't want that to be misunderstood. Is that, I just thought really the intent is that we're approving an overall envelope of what that overall amount is, and my understanding is that in no way does that prescribe how the chief executive allocates this funding. I just really want to be clear on that. A few things that have come up through the debate. Someone suggested that we were suggesting not to pay market rate. This is in no way suggesting that we don't pay market rate. I think we've had good, comfortable steps up in terms of my understanding of remuneration, which has partially resulted in what we understand is a very high retention rate currently at council. I do believe our staff are well looked after, and it's not, the intent of this resolution is not to be suggesting that people are not paid properly. I also want to say that this is not, I do not believe that this is the mechanism to manage performance of specific teams. So if there's a particular team who aren't delivering, I don't think throwing money, more money is always the way to address that. I think there are other mechanisms to address performance of specific teams. So really I want to be clear that this is about us approving an overall envelope, which is $500,000 more than our LTP figure, and I have explained the reasons for that. I appreciate Councillor Wood has reminded us of those submissions, and it is really that feedback that has driven me to put this on the table, because I never find this comfortable or easy. In fact, it feels quite awkward with all the staff in the room to even discuss this. But for the sake of our community, I need to listen to that, and I do think this is a measured and appropriate response to that. So I'd really urge you to support it.
Okay, all right. We'll vote on the operating budget there around the REM budget, 65.3 million. If you could vote, please. and that is failed, 7 votes for and 9 against. All right, we'll now move through to number K, which is the Chief Executive identify options in order to reduce 1% of total overhead costs from the 26-27 annual budget by making reductions to, including but not limited to, marketing, communications, digital solutions, print synergy and organisational planning, and that this be reported to Council on the 3rd of June 26. And Councillor Naylor.
Mr Mayor. We've had a lot of focus on overheads in our discussion, so I don't think this will be anything new to those of you around the table. And throughout over the recent weeks, I have asked a few questions of officers and thank the officers for providing that additional information. The overall budget, as has been outlined, is 41.1 million for overheads in the coming year. Approximately 59% of that, or 24.66 million, is staff or remuneration costs. The other 41%, or the 16.5 million, is non-staff costs. So I just want to outline that primarily because I think sometimes people are concerned that reducing overheads might have an impact on staff, and I'm not prescribing that in the intent of this resolution. This resolution, I do want to also delete with the seconder's permission, the part that prescribes from reductions to remove to, including but not limited to, marketing, communications, digital solutions, print synergy and organisational planning. If we could delete that, thank you. Do you think? Okay, well, I haven't got the seconder's support for that at this stage, but my intent of this resolution is not to prescribe in what way the 1% of reductions is identified. As a result of staff feedback after I sent this recommendation in, the Chief Executive said that we would need to identify the areas of reductions. We have put in there including but not limited to those areas, and those are simply some examples I quickly came up with having a quick look through the content. One of the questions I asked, I think it's in tranche 2 of the questions, was in the overall summary of overheads there was 5.66 million of other costs, and in relation to the answer to that question, some of those costs included things such as staff travel, catering, medical, gifts, consumables. There's also a significant amount of, there are other costs in terms of printing in the organisation. So there are many costs in this organisation that I think could be trimmed down. In the absence today, it's 3 o'clock, we've added to the budget, we have not taken away from it. I'm disappointed about this. I have not come today with a long list of programs to reduce. I've tried to be a little bit strategic and look at where we can get some bigger gains and do things a little bit more strategically. Last year, or in recent years, when we did this with the professional services budget, the Chief Executive came back and identified that, and I think the Chief Executive has the best insight to identify the most appropriate areas of reductions of overheads. We have very little oversight of overheads other than understanding that specific activities have some overheads allocated to them. I am really interested in getting a little bit of a better understanding and more transparency around overheads, and some of the answers to questions have led me to believe that I think some of these costs could be trimmed down. 1% I think is very moderate. So the nature of this would be that any implications would be reported back to Council. So we're not going into this blind. We would have an opportunity on the 3rd of June if what was presented was not palatable for any reason, that there could be changes made. I think from memory, when we did that with the professional services budget, it was very reasonable what came back to us, and we approved that. So that is the intent of this resolution. Is 1% equates to 411,000. So it's a fairly minor. It would make an impact to it would have an impact to reduce rates ever so slightly perhaps between 2 and 3%. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Look, I have an issue with singling out departments, and I have a strong issue with it actually, and just saying if it isn't removed, I won't be supporting it. So I'll just leave it at that. Councillor Wood.
Mr Mayor, just to say, I mean, look, I'm happy to take it out. We didn't write this recommendation with areas in it. We were told explicitly by staff that they wouldn't know what to do with this recommendation without it. So I feel we're stuck in a bit of a rock and a hard place here. That's why we said including but not limited to. But with the seconders, or with the movers' permission, then okay, sure, take it out. Just by leave it at cost from the 2026 annual budget, full stop. And that's be reported to council on the 3rd of June. That was our original wording.
Yeah.
I don't understand why in other areas, when we've asked the Chief Executive to come back with a list of areas to look at, like we did in professional services last year, and they came back with a list, we didn't have to say, go and look at property, and go and look at this, and go and look at that. We got a list of here's what the impact would be, and then we made a decision on it. So we were simply trying to respond to officer advice both in that area, but I agree with you, Mr Mayor, I'd rather not delineate it. The point of this recommendation is this is something we haven't done before, and we've had increasing issues with overheads over the last year, I think it would be fair to say, and I hope this piques your interest. It piques my interest. I don't know what it would look like. It might come out completely unpalatable, and if that's the case, then I won't vote for it, but I am certainly interested as to what a movement in this space would be. Aside from this, and separate to this, Councillor Johnston and I have some recommendations I'd like to say later in the day, but I suspect that's optimistic, so early tomorrow, to look at getting some more oversight of the overheads, which I think is also necessary, but I don't see any reason not to have a look under the hood and see what it is. So I hope you'd support seeing what this would look like as a new idea.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I don't support this. I do think we need more information about overheads, and that's why I'm happy to support Councillor Wood's recommendation later on about overheads, but I'm not happy to do this a kind of hidden reduction, really, and I'm not quite sure how, if it comes back on the 3rd of June and we're not happy with it, we're going to be able to say, well, we don't want to do this, and then that's going to put rates up. So since it seems to be the trend to be able to quote from submissions, I have a selection myself that I thought I would read to you. So one is reasonable increase given the environment. However, I would be prepared to pay a higher level of increase to ensure vital services are appropriately updated and maintained. I am impressed, this is another one, I'm impressed with the reduction compared to the projected increase. Thank you. Next one, happy with what's proposed. Good to see no big vanity projects, and we are focusing heavily on water and roading. Think it is most appropriate this year. Nice to see spending cut back on a number of things. I think it seems reasonable. The rates rise is very small. So we can all pick out submissions that suit our particular theme. But the fact is that we've received submissions on both sides of the argument. We've had submissions from people who want us to reduce rates further, and we've had more or less an equal number of submissions from people who want us to maintain the budget where we've proposed it and not to make further cuts. So I'm not persuaded that there's a significant message from the community that we need to go into reducing overhead costs. What it will do is it will cut back on the services, the internal services of council, and make council less efficient and reduce levels of service. There's just no other way for it to happen. So I would urge you not to support this. Yes, we do need more information about overheads, but this isn't the way to achieve it.
Councillor Finlay.
I'm sorry to tell you you're wrong, Councillor Wood. This is not the first time we did this. We did this several years ago, and we asked the then CEO, I think it was 3 or 4%, to take off overall, and only one councillor stood up and argued against it, and that was Councillor Johnston. She was quite vocal at the time, but we put it through. And the results came back, which to this day still have affected the council. We instructed the CEO to do it. And the CEO did it. She came back to us and said this is what was going to happen. The councillors regretted it. And one councillor stood there smiling and said, "I told you so." And I'll never forget it. It's a lesson I learnt, and it was a major lesson. It is not our job to tell the CEO to take a percentage off. It's our job to tell him what to take off. So just to throw out a number like that is totally unfair. I believe our staff have done a very good job and have gone through the budget and they've taken out everything they possibly could. If you ask them to take out things now, you might be sorry for it later on. Just want to just let you know we've done it before.
Councillor Harper.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just looking at this recommendation K and the other one that's going to be proposed, I think whether it's tomorrow, I think the other one's more transparent and it talks about identifying overheads and being more transparent with overheads, and I think that's, for me, where I want to go, because I think that's why the mystery of overheads and what goes into overheads and where overheads go is where I want to be with overheads. So I'm going to vote this one down because I want the other one is where I want to go with overheads. So for me, because I'm not sure where this one's going to go and which department it's going to be referred to, I'm going to vote this one down because I really am more interested in the other one. So I'll be voting for the other one. Thank you.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
I'll be supporting this one, but I think Councillor Finlay might be confused as to what the job of councillors are. It is precisely our job to set budgets for the Chief Executive to allocate. This is being smack in the middle of our remit, and it's also entirely reasonable to expect continuing operational efficiencies on our overheads in the way we do things with the likes of AI and systems to reduce costs over time. So I think this is a very sensible motion to move forward on. Thank you.
Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm pleased that you took the lead to take out those items in different departments. I feel that our role as governors should be the budget setting and not defining for the Chief Executive the areas to review. And so I'm quite comfortable. We're talking about 1%. That's, if you're looking at a household budget, you know, that's like reviewing your subscriptions, whether you're using them or not, or going through your app store and just doing your audit there, taking your lunch to work a few extra days a week. 1% is reasonable in my mind. And it's not just households that are actually feeling the cost of living pinch. There's many businesses around our city also feeling a little stretched, whether it's just because, you know, people are being more reserved in what they're spending in the whole environment. And so I think that's a recognition. Without us tweaking a few different things, for my mind, I think that is a little tone deaf. And this here, again, I just reflecting back on the 1%, if you put that in your own household budget, you know, it's actually, that wouldn't need to change a lot to make that 1% be achieved if you're cutting out some costs. I think the same would be found with the city if we needed to print this here or actually do that there or whatever else. I think it's a fair and reasonable request of our CE, and to have it reported back next month, you know, ultimately for further tweaks. Very, very comfortable with this line of sight. Thanks.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just listening to some of the commentary, you'd think that this work hadn't already been done, that somehow there was a whole lot of lacking review that had never even happened. I seem to recall a long-term plan that had 8.9 in it. I seem to recall a recent report that had 4.9 in it, and today we have a report that has 4.4 in it. I'd suggest that a fair bit of work has been done to say, where can we contain costs? And yes, some people might want to see a further 1% cut from somewhere. But to suggest that, that work hasn't already been well underway, my confidence is with the Chief Executive and their team that they've actually looked at overheads and said, where can we contain costs? Because, again, we are not facing an 8.9, we're not facing a 4.9, we have a 4.4 in front of us now. And so it's very simple to see what a 1% cost, 1% cut would do on the 3rd of June. It would mean 1% less we get done. So the fundamental question is, do you want a do less council or a get on with it council? And I'd rather have a get on with it council. I know the homework's been done, so I'm not going to be supporting yet another round of going and looking for rats and mice that we can chase through on the 3rd of June.
Councillors, I think the CE has done a great job of, to date, of looking where things, as Councillor Barrett sort of showed the staircase as it's come down. But I do think it is our role sometimes to say, look, we're going to test the room to see whether there is a little bit more that can be found. Look, he may come back and say, we are starting to cut some fingers off if we do this. So I'm of the view, we have a $213 million budget. So we're looking at 1% of our overheads. I think it's reasonable to say, look, is there something that can be found here? I appreciate that, that's why I wanted units out of it. So I differ in views to some of you that I'm going to the expert around the overheads, because we don't set the overheads, but we set the budget or parameters for that. So I think it is quite right that we do this. We're not talking about chopping a whole lot of roles or remuneration. We've gone through that, and I didn't agree with that, but I do think this is worthy of exploring and finding out what can come of it. So I will be supporting it. Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, colleagues, for your comments. Just responding to a few. Councillor Johnson, mentioned that there have been submissions made on both sides, and I've certainly heard those too. I've heard those people who have said that they're happy with the rates increase. I've even heard people who have said that they'd be happy with higher rates increases. But I've also heard those who are struggling. And I think each one of us will place different weight on different information that we get, perhaps for different reasons. And I just want to explain for a moment the reason that I probably place more weight on some of those submissions from people who are struggling. I believe a community is judged on how it treats its most vulnerable. I believe it's a really hard thing for someone in the community to do, to sit at this table and say, I'm struggling with the rates increases that you're proposing. Sorry, I don't mean to. For that reason, I am very motivated to respond to that feedback, because I hear it day after day. And as Councillor Dennison has mentioned, it's not just households, it's businesses who are trying to make their businesses work. So for that reason, that is what drives my motivation to try and get things down. It's not to make anyone's life difficult, and it's not that I'm ignoring those submissions who have said, yes, put more stuff in our budget, we're happy with rates increases. I think that's really fortunate for those people that they can afford that, but it's not the same for everyone across the community.
Okay, we will vote on options to reduce overheads. Thank you. And that is passed, 11 votes for and 5 against. Okay, we move through to number L, and that council does not renew its membership of Local Government New Zealand for the 26-27 year, and Councillor Wood.
Christchurch, Auckland, West Coast Regional, Grey District, Kaipara District, Westland District, Western Bay of Plenty District, 7 councils in our country, which represent 2.34 million people, about 44% of our country's population, have already left local government New Zealand. The argument to stay with this organisation that costs our city $130,000 a year, 88,000 membership, 41,000 for educational and other fees, including conferences and whatnot, I believe is a weak one. And I think it's time that we have the discussion in the chamber, and it may well be the will of the chamber you want to remain, and that's fine, but I think it's a worthy conversation to have, and one that's certainly been topical in recent years around the country. Do we get value for money out of this organisation that's only flying half a ship, only representing just over half the population of the country? I don't think so, and I'll outline why. One of the key reasons people say, William, we must remain a member of LGNZ because we wouldn't be able to do the advocacy that they do on our own. And I thought that's an interesting point. So I went through and read the submissions on LGNZ's website and had a look at what things have they achieved for us in a community. This is their February 2023 submission to the Future for Local Government Amendment Bill. So I've had 3 years to work on these recommendations that they're advocating for us for. Number 2, sign a memorandum of understanding between central and local government after each general election. Hasn't been done. Number 3, make specific recommendations about the roles and functions that could be reallocated from central to local government. Hasn't been done. Introduce a requirement for local government and other organisations to develop local place plans with local wellbeing priorities. Hasn't been done. Adopt a revenue sharing model under which local government receives an automatic share of national taxation. I think I can tell you for free, councillors. Hasn't been done. Establish a local government centre of excellence that promotes good practice innovation across local government. Hasn't been done. Implement a 4-year electoral term. Hasn't been done. Develop an engaging participatory civics curriculum for our community. Hasn't been done. In fact, of the 23 recommendations that our key effective advocacy body, which we get great value for money out of, has achieved, 1. And one of those ones that it has achieved is city and regional deals, which was already agreed in government policy beforehand, but we could give them some credit that perhaps they did have some influence over wanting that to happen. However, the kicker with that one really is that the only council so far to get a city or regional deal is the one that left LGNZ first, Auckland. So I have no belief or confidence that we get any real value for advocacy out of their organisation. Their chief executive released a document that they sent to all councillors showing if you ever face these challenges, here's the 10 things that we've done for you. And the first one was we've supported reform of the Building Act around seismic strengthening, a thing that was already campaigned on, promised and committed prior to them advocating for it. It's quite remarkable. If I was paid a 6-figure salary to justify why LGNZ is a good and effective body, I could probably come up with a couple of things that the government's already doing that we support and say, here you go, that's something that we've achieved for local government. So I don't think they are an effective advocacy organisation. I think they are about as effective as we are as a council. We put submissions in on every relevant piece of legislation. We sit here and debate them and approve them in this chamber, and I think we get about the same result that local government New Zealand gets, which is sometimes we get what we want and they hear our way and sometimes they don't. And so for that reason alone, I don't think we're getting what we say we want out of it. The other reason is, in my first year as elected member, I decided I'd go to the LGNZ conference. I thought I'd be interested in what this organisation's all about. And I believe it was Wayne Brown, when Auckland left LGNZ, he said it was just a bunch of boozy nights. And my observation there was literally a Simpson-Grierson free gin bar. I mean, if that's not emblematic of the relationship between council and consultancy, I don't know what is. But there was literally there, serving out free gin from Simpson-Grierson. I am yet to see much value of going to conferences in New Zealand's most expensive brand new conference centres to have lovely meetings and hear speeches. I'm yet to see the value that our community is getting out of that $130-something thousand spend. And look, councillors, if you can hand on heart in your speech go, William, here's 5 things that Palmerston North's got out of the $415,000 we've spent in the last 5 years, then okay, I'll withdraw it. Sure, I'll withdraw it. If you can tell me, here's the things that our community's getting for that 400 grand, I can imagine so many other things we could have done with 400 grand. Whatever your personal passion is, councillor, imagine us putting this money into it. We absolutely could. So is it worth being, look, maybe 10 years ago when they were representing the whole country and they had some more weight, perhaps, but they have about as much weight as we do. They achieve about as much through their submissions as we do, and I don't see any huge value in us continuing to attend their conferences at New Zealand's most expensive conference centres. So I'm quite happy to propose that we leave. I accept that that may not be the will of the room, but I think it was worth testing.
Whoa, what a bit of lag. Have you caught up with the latest 3 months of work, councillor? I think, man, it's like hearing something back from another decade. That's the old LGNZ. You do know that your mayor is on the National Council, and I left it. And I'm sorry, I'm hearing a lot of laughter around the room. I left it because I agreed with your comments then, but it's changed. And even the priority list that you read out has changed. It's now May, not February. So that was the old LGNZ, that was the old CEO, that was the old office, that was the old policies, that was the old priorities, it was the old president, it was the old National Council. I've tried to be part of the solution rather than this is not against Mayor Wayne Brown, but he was at the wrong conference when he quoted about the boozing and all of that, and he was playing the banjo in the band. Seriously, he was. And he did have the wrong conference. But that's okay. We can forgive him for that. And look, Wayne and I have spoken, and his deputy mayor, we hope to have back at a Metro meeting, and the same with Mayor Phil from Christchurch. Look, there has been some issues with LGNZ. I don't take that, that is true. Consequently, there's been a total reset. And we need to be part of the solution, not throwing stones on an old organisation which did have its priorities wrong. So do we support them, or do we just throw our toys and go, oh, no, it's not worth it? And by the way, it's 82,000 our membership. Of course, there is an organisation, the Taxpayers Union, which, have some different numbers. Yes, you can look it up, councillor, not via the Taxpayers Union. So let's take the politics out of it. And LGNZ are councils and local government's peak body organisation. Is there another? I don't think there is. So what have we done? Well, we're not going to New Zealand's most expensive conference centres. We're having the conference at Rotorua. It has got a very, very slimmed down version of what was happening. It's going to have a stand-up dinner. It's not going to have flash awards. Some of the things they have achieved, the earthquake-prone legislation is very much in their wheelhouse. They have done a lot there, as is this council and Manawatu District. The accommodation levy, getting that through the coalition government and on the table has been another big bit of work. Now Auckland have acknowledged the work that's gone on there. The simplifying of local government, there's been a huge amount of work going on in the background. I appreciate that some that are sitting from the sideline are looking at the old LGNZ and thinking, oh no, we don't like the look of that. But there actually has been a massive reset. So I just say to you colleagues, don't throw things out now. If ever there was a time to stay there, it is now. Judge it by 1 year, give us a year or the rest of the year to fix things and just see where it sits and judge it again in a year's time. Simply chucking it out or doing nothing is not an option. So I've invested a lot of my time to go back in. I've gone back in on the National Council, a new president, Riet Stoltz, 100% change on the National Council, and we can feel the reset. There's a new CEO and there's a new set of priorities, so give it a chance. You're judging this on lag. This is the commentary there is all lag. So please, colleagues, don't support this. Give it a chance, even if it was something that went in there for this year, and revisit it next year. But to judge it on the old LGNZ, I just don't think it's fair. You need to put something up.
I've got this not from the Taxpayers Union, but in answer to our questions that we asked our officers. I just think it's worth correcting the record that on the question of how much we spent in LGNZ, the answer was subscriptions of $88,559 and educational fees, conference and registrations of $41,779. So just to clarify, that's directly from our officers.
So I asked the CE, what was our membership, and he told me 82,000.
Well, that wasn't information I had to record, so I appreciate the clarification, but that was answer from our officers.
Yeah. Membership, you stated, was over 100,000. Okay. We'll agree to disagree. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you. This is a very simple call, and it comes down to value and accountability. We're asking our ratepayers to absorb rising costs everywhere they look. In that environment, we cannot justify spending money on something where the benefit is and has been very unclear. Right now, LGNZ is at best described as a nice to have. We pay a lot of money, and however you argue that split up, it's over $100,000 a year that this council spends relating to an LGNZ membership. For what? A couple of boozy conferences and a wish list. It's not good enough. We don't need LGNZ to speak for us, and they often don't, as evidenced by the list that Councillor Wood put up. If we want to advocate to government, we can do it ourselves, and we can do it more clearly and more effectively. We already have the relationships, we already collaborate with other councils. None of that will disappear. What does change is that we stop paying for a blanket membership that delivers questionable value. Our responsibility is to our community, not to a lobby group. If something isn't delivering, we stop funding it. We don't give it just one more year. But nonetheless, should this motion fail, and in a year's time when we come back with the wish list and nothing's still delivered, I look forward to seeing the Mayor vote to leave. Thank you.
Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm afraid I'll be voting to leave LGNZ today as well. While 71 out of 78 councils remain members, that doesn't automatically make it good value. And some of the largest councils in this country have already left. Just because we've always done something doesn't mean we need to keep on doing it. We're spending around, whether it's 82 or 130 on membership fees alone, and adding expensive conferences on top. I haven't actually attended an LGNZ conference, but I have attended many other conferences over the years for different things, and too often that's just wasteful spending and you get very little return. As it's being stated, the next conference in Rotorua later in the year, I can't justify going to that or that cost to our ratepayers. And at a time when families are tightening their belts and more spending is being added to this budget, now is the time for discipline and leadership in this room, not unnecessary expenditure. If we can't clearly justify the spending, then we shouldn't be asking ratepayers to fund it. Thank you.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Mr Mayor, for your comments on this, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Your question about the value of this investment, and I absolutely recognise that might not be clear to members who've only been here for a few months. But my experience of LGNZ is that does provide value. I'm hoping that it increases in the value that it provides with the reset that the Mayor spoke to. But I have to say, when we received the news yesterday of the enthusiastically entitled Head Start, the place I went to for guidance on that, for information, was to the LGNZ website. I noted that yesterday, straight away, we had an email to all of our inboxes from the Chief Executive of LGNZ setting out their response to it, the work that had been gone on in the background, the work that LGNZ had been doing with government to try and prepare a softer landing spot for us. I really value the work that they do on our behalf. I find value in it. I've found value in the training and development opportunities that LGNZ have provided and do provide for elected members, and noting that even if we didn't do that through LGNZ, elected members would still need professional learning and development. That budget would just move somewhere else, so that's not an actual saving. And I think the value that I find, and to Councillor Fitzgerald's point about we're responsible to our community for this, yes we are. We're responsible to our community for good, well-informed decisions. And for me, the role of LGNZ is in helping us to make good, well-informed decisions, and I have found value in that. And yes, absolutely, you won't find value in that if you never go to those things, if you never avail yourselves of the opportunities that's there. That's absolutely fine that you will say, I don't find value in that. But for those of us who do, and I'll note that there are colleagues around the table who engage particularly in some of the special interest groups that LGNZ put forward, then there's huge value for some of us in that, but I'll accept that's maybe not everybody's experience. I would note to Councillor Wood's damning list of failures. What was the date on that, Councillor Wood? 2023, I think. Do you know what happened in 23? We got the current government. So is that list of failures to do with LGNZ, or is it due to the current government not listening to LGNZ? I propose that is actually a more likely response. And yes, you're right, we do submit on every man and his dog submission that government wants from us. But if you look back at the submissions that our officers churn out, like some kind of mill of submission writing, we tend to submit for positive change within the bounds of the proposal. We never submit to say, that's a terrible idea, please go away and think again, because we know exactly how that would land. It never would. So we look for small changes that make it more palatable for us. Whereas the role of LGNZ is to submit at that systemic level. They do challenge some of the big tickets. They challenge the frameworks that these things happen in. And yes, that's hard work. And yes, it's difficult to get runs on the board. But without them doing that, we certainly wouldn't be doing it. We haven't got the manpower to do it. Last time we thought about doing our own advocacy, there was a suggestion that we needed a job to do that. You know what a job would cost? About 160 grand a year. So we're currently saving money by being in LGNZ, and I won't be supporting this.
Councillor McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to say that I won't be supporting the recommendation before us. And I'm in favour of us actually retaining our membership of LGNZ because I believe that it provides a strategic influence. I mean, the organisation provides a strategic influence to the sector. And also, I believe that LGNZ's job is to represent local government, the central government, and to obtain the best outcomes and provide professional guidance and upskilling for the sector, for councils. And remaining part of LGNZ allows us to engage collaboratively on issues that matter to our community, i.e. Earthquake-prone buildings, which I believe the Mayor, you've been very a strong advocate around it as well. And also, it allows us to ensure that Palmerston North's voice is heard and represented as national reforms are progressing at the moment. It is better for us to work together with LGNZ rather than trying to stand alone and wing it on our own. We're not Auckland, we're not Christchurch, we're not Wellington who can advocate or who have issues that can advocate on their behalves. I see LGNZ more like the UN. We're all part of it. It's not a great organization. I mean, the organization doesn't, the organization is not perfect, but we're actually better being part of it than being outside of it, personally. That's how I view it. And over the last few months, as the Mayor has alluded to earlier on, is that LGNZ has made a lot of changes, and the leadership since then has actually adopted a lot of resolutions that are actually making it more palatable or cleaning up the mess that a lot of councils have been actually pointing the finger at. They are getting more buy-ins and engagement with ministers for those that receive the weekly newsletters and the correspondence that they've been receiving. And I believe that at a time of what could be the most significant change for local government in almost 40 years, I believe that continued partnership or participation support informed decision-making, relationships, and long-term regional outcomes for all of us and for the sector. So on the basis of that argument, I'll be saying, I'll be voting against this and in favor of retaining our membership. But one point that I also want to highlight, LGNZ conferences, from my personal experience, has not been boozy nights or boozy gathering where people just come and get drunk and nothing gets achieved. I've actually personally benefited from it, from the professional learning experiences, and these opportunities are given to all councillors. For those that have not attended, you are more than free to put your name forward to the email that our administrator sent out a few weeks ago. So from my own personal experience, it's been those conferences have been very helpful for me to understand the sector, what other councils are actually facing in terms of challenges, outcomes, or opportunities, and learning from those in order to also implement in my day-to-day work. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
The Deputy Mayor.
Kia ora, Your Worship, o te rā tēnā tātou. Well, I wholeheartedly agree with what the Mayor has said and also Councillor Bowen. Tihei, that means Yahoo. Well done. And the reason for, I do believe that local government NZ provide us with national advocacy and influence. There's a collective voice for councils, and when I look at the 4 subsets that they have, or uhu groups in LGNZ, we've got the metro sector, of which our mayor has been the chair of. We've got the regional sector, provincial sector, rural sector. And if I just go back to the metro sector, we're with a group that I believe are really significant. Dunedin City Council, Hamilton City Council, Hutt City Council, Porirua City Council, Queenstown Lakes District, Tauranga City Council, Upper Hutt City Council, Wellington City Council, and Whangarei District Council. There is strength in numbers, whānau, and networking and working together builds a really good relationship. We can share resources, we can look to highlight things that concern or impact on our ability to, with the view to look for efficiencies and effectiveness, shared policy positions. I suppose, picking up on what Councillor Fitzgerald had said right at the beginning, he said, I suppose it comes down to what we value. And I value collaborative relationships and positive relationships. And I think this is something that LGNZ does have that. And if you've been following the trajectory of LGNZ, you can see, like all our organisations, they have their ups and downs, but they're on that cycle of going up, and they have to. Because the government reforms that have been coming out have made our role and the role of every other council around the country very complex. We were talking before about our staff and the work they do. Their work just gets more complicated. So we have to be ready and respond to that, but you have to be equipped with that. And knowledge is power, and by moderating your thoughts with others in a wider area, but those who have similar issues, I believe, gives us a better understanding of how we could be better prepared to meet that. So just on that though, I'd like to mihi to our mayor, because we're talking about going ahead and promoting our city. Now he goes to those hui. He represents, he's elected on those, on the metro sector group and other groups, because he's vocal and he's pounding the table. And we know, we feel at times, or many times, that Palmerston North City isn't heard by government. Well, I'm grateful that he's going down there for those hui. I'm grateful that he's with others who feel the same, like minds. And I'm supportive of remaining in local government NZ. Ngā mihi, kia ora.
Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. I actually do believe that being a part of LGNZ is some benefit, and have had some engagement and think that there's some good work happening. But I will be supporting this recommendation because I don't believe it's essential for us to be investing in our LGNZ membership. And I've stood and advocated most programs that I've stood at this table and recommended to be reduced or paused or whatever. It's never because I don't see any value in it. It's simply because I don't believe our community is saying that they can afford to do all of the things that we're doing. So in the absence of many other options that elected members have presented here today for reductions, and given the really strong feedback from some of our community who are really struggling, I'm willing to support this on that basis.
Councillor Sabellin.
Thank you. I don't have strong opinions on this matter either way, but what I did want to say is that I can't see that this current government gives two hoots about what local government thinks or suggests or has to say, whether it comes from us or whether it comes from a combined body. And the tone and the wording of the announcement yesterday made by the government was actually insolent and insulting, as if we were naughty children, rebellious children who haven't fallen into line to a directive that hadn't even been given yet. These aren't people who are truly open to advocacy from us. So the idea that we are stronger together, to my mind, doesn't actually play out in practice when the investment decisions and the policy decisions being made in Wellington depend more on who you know than what's being advocated for. So I think you can advocate all you like, but if it's falling on deaf ears, is it worth it? I think the Regulatory Standards Act is a really good example of sustained advocacy to no avail. I'm not sure where I sit on this, because I'm not sure that the board is geared for us to be effective, either as a council or as local government NZ. Non-committal comment. I'm sorry about that. I'll keep listening.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, colleagues. Yeah, so the start of this debate was certainly one of the more negative and myopic framings that's come up in some time in this chamber, and I was quite astonished to hear that was kind of the scope of what was in the mind in terms of how we weigh up the value of being in or being out of local government in New Zealand, and very much a tear it down rather than build it up mindset, which is not the mindset that I have. Acknowledge what the mayor said, the Councillor Bowen said, the deputy mayor, around examples of value of relationships, and hearing that. For better or worse, I decided to take the mover's bait. Now this is going to be risky. He wanted some tangible examples, and actually agree with some of what Councillor Zabellin just said. You may be relieved to know that neither of these tangible examples are around collective advocacy, because I agree we have one of the deafest governments in history. So the first example I'll give is around excellence and lifting performance. And, you know, I will acknowledge local government is a sector where lifting performance should be a continued focus, and probably where there is room to move. And the tangible example I would give there is the Super Local Awards. They tap into the competitive drive, striving for excellence, striving for recognition, and in doing so, increasing performance. So that's increasing performance out of a $200 million organization that we are, but it's an increasing our performance in terms of how we're delivering to the community in terms of things that are, yes, a little bit less hard to put a dollar value on, like social cohesion, like protecting the environment. It's also increasing our performance in terms of how we contribute in supporting and driving forward $7 billion of local economy. And that's just for our 132K here. You look at what LGNZ and those awards motivate and stimulate across the MOTU in terms of lifting performance and excellence. And I'd say, on balance, that's very good value for money, having the Super Local Awards. The second one that I'd give you an example of is the Ratepayer Assistance Scheme, something that has been championed and driven through LGNZ despite years and years and years and years of tin ear coming out of the beehive. That is a scheme that, for want of a local government minister getting with the program, could actually be delivering vast benefit to community in terms of getting solar out on rooftops, in terms of a rates affordability mechanism that would actually speak to those that are asset rich and cash poor, etc. Again, that's exactly as Councillor Bowen said. You know, I think the issue might be the government, not LGNZ, when we talk about and look at the value that LGNZ offers. So absolutely, I'm in their boots and all in terms of staying in. There is something else I'd like to change, and that's 7th of November.
Councillor Finlay.
My, we are getting political, aren't we? Local government in New Zealand, I have not gone or put my name in to go to those conferences for, well over 10 years now. Why did I stop going to them? Because they were full of people that were half drunk, boozing. It might offend people, I'm sorry, but it's true. The people brown-nosing, and it was quite embarrassing. We used to have councillors would go to those conferences and would get reports back from them after the conference, so we would all gain knowledge of what they'd picked up at the conferences. I haven't seen one in over 10 years. Well, in fact, I haven't seen one for any conference really for about 10 years. But local government New Zealand, I've been assured it's changed. So I put my name in this year. I probably won't get in, but I put my name forward to see if they have really changed. Are they worth it? Well, I reckon they're worth a chance for 1 year. Just for the year. Let's see if our mayor and the go-getters can make a difference to this organisation. One of the things that I do have noticed year after year after year, the submissions that go to government, nothing ever happens with them. I also belong to an organisation that goes to government 4 times a year and sees 5 to 6 ministers every trip. We would probably get a third of our submissions through and get some major differences. So why can't local government New Zealand do it? Have they got the wrong people doing it? Do they go with the wrong attitude? Do they go with you will attitude, or can we help? So a lot of things I think local government New Zealand could change. Let's give them a year, and this time next year, if Councillor Wood can stand up and read out his list, I'll vote against it, but this year I will vote for it.
Councillor Johnson.
Well, Councillor Finlay has stung me into responding because the last conference I went to was the New Zealand Planning Institute conference. And on the 1st of April 2025, I sent a 10-page report back from that conference, Councillor Finlay, and that is well within the last 10 years. Now, on the subject of local government New Zealand, I think I'm just going to speak to the value that I see in it. And that for me is mostly around the educational and professional development opportunities that are provided online. In fact, we just had an email through this morning about a couple that are coming up. In particular, there have been some very useful learning initiatives around safety and security for elected members, and advocacy around the need for elected members to have more security at home. And there has been, in particular, a kind of a focus on supporting new elected members and supporting elected members who might be, I guess, targeted in terms of having stalkers and that type of stuff. So I have found all of that to be extremely useful. It doesn't really speak into the advocacy debate, because I think, as others have said, that that's neither here nor there. But to say we get no value from local government New Zealand is just not true. And different members will have spoken about the different value that they get from it. I certainly think it's valuable. And I also agree that there's value in being in touch with other councils through a national organisation and being connected together. Yes, we have good relationships with the councils that are in our sort of region, but how often would we understand what was happening in Northland or in Christchurch or in some other part of the country that we don't have regular contact with? Only through the Local Government New Zealand networking. So I do think there's value in it. I have to say I wasn't terribly impressed with some of the theatrics during the debate. And in particular, I really object to elected members sitting snickering when other people are speaking. And I really think that's disrespectful and it needs to stop.
Now, Councillor Barrett, you're back in the queue.
It's a point of order. Just need to correct some information from Councillor Finlay's statement. The 2025 Local Government Conference was 16th and 17th of July. On Monday, the 21st of November, I sent an 8-page report to all elected members summarizing that. So check your inbox.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Kia ora, also just to add with that, that when we have council-only sessions, we discuss those. Councillors also give oral accounts from time to time.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Right, a reply, Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, colleagues, for the debate. It has been useful to understand where you're coming from and the value you see from the organisation. So although you probably don't think I do appreciate that. I've been called small-minded utopian before. I've even been called negative and myopic, so that's a new one. But I don't think it's negative or myopic to give a list of things that LGNZ has advocated for and had years to deliver and then not achieved when you're framing up a debate about the value of LGNZ's advocacy. I think that's completely appropriate, clearly, given I said it. But I would just like to say there, if you've only achieved one of the 23 things you've set out to do in our core local government review, and here's the basic things that we need to get sorted, I don't think that's a good argument for the advocacy of the organisation. And the point has been made by some councillors, oh, that's all just the current government's fault. I'd say two things. One is that the purpose of LGNZ is to be able to advocate across governments, blue or red. That is what they're there for, and I think that is completely appropriate for them to need to be able to advocate for both. We can't just go, oh, well, we can't do anything for 9 years or 6 years, whatever it may be, 3 years, if some councillors got their way. But I would also say it goes both ways. I mean, the last government went up and down the country and said, are you okay for us to create 5 mega blob entities for 3 waters and take billions of dollars of assets off you? And councils, in large part, or a number of them, said no, and they went, oh, well, we're doing it anyway. So I don't really think there's this give or take of one government listens to local government or the other. I think it is fair to say different governments listen to local government about different things, about different areas that they've got a particular passion for. And so I'm not compelled by the argument that this current government is the only government that's never listened to local government, or that they're so much worse than other previous governments. I don't think that's true at all. On Councillor Bowen's point around additional advocacy costing more, I do agree. If we said, go out and hire someone to do our advocacy, that would cost probably more than what we're spending today. What I'm suggesting is I think our existing level of advocacy, where we have submissions on particular departments of interest from us, is appropriate and adequate and about as effective as what we're getting through LGNZ. I liked Councillor Barrett, and I appreciate you engaging with my challenge of what are some examples of LGNZ delivering, and you gave the Super Local Awards one, and the only example I can think of that impacting our local community was when we got an award for consultation for Featherston Street at the Super Local Awards, and I can hardly see that as, am I wrong on that? I'm seeing shaking heads.
We've won about 5 awards, councillor.
Very good.
Festival of Cultures, Best Consultation, Green Corridors. Do you want me to show them as you walk in? They're in the entranceway.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll leave it there then. I'll leave it there. One of the areas I thought was interesting was the argument, we'll just give them another chance for another year. And I hear what you're saying, Councillor Finlay, but you've just said you've had 10 years of not seeing any value in it, but maybe in 11 they'll do it. And look, I hope you're right. I hope you're right, Mr. Mayor. I really do. I hope they're a new organisation with a new direction and new purpose, and they're going to listen to their sector and deliver effective results. And I hope if this fails in a year's time, I'm proven wrong. But I'm not seeing it. I've given it 4 years, going, let's see the value here of what we're getting, and I'm yet to see it. And so if all that wasn't enough to convince you, the strongest argument that I think came from this debate around the effectiveness and efficiency of LGNZ came from the good Councillor Mickelard, that like the UN.
All right, on that note, we will vote to not renew on the membership of LGNZ. And that has failed. 5 votes for, 11 against. All right, we'll now go to M. And this is the last one of... Oh, S, sorry. Of our capital, sorry, of our operating budgets. Oh, can somebody put it up, please? All right, this is S, around international relations. Okay, and this is around international relations and education. Unit have a 20% reduction of their controllable expenses, which is 98,000, minus their remuneration and overheads, reducing the budget by 12,000. I'm moving that, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Colleagues, I'll speak to this, and I won't go on for too long because I'm wary of the time. Look, I've read the room, and look, there should be no sacred cows. We've just gone through a couple today, but I'm happy to put this up because Even though I'm a strong supporter of the program, it has been part of our point of difference as a city as well. Mayors have supported this for almost a century. I go back to 1926. The then Mayor Frederick Nathan of Glaxo fame promoted the city as an international agricultural centre. He attracted Massey, New Zealand Dairy Research Institute, which became Fonterra Global, and the DSIR, which then split out into the CRIs. Now, most mayors have supported this through the decades, and international education has become part of that, with obviously with Massey and our other tertiary institutions, and it's worth over 40 million to us as a sector, and it's building back nicely for the city. And I believe, and just talking to Education New Zealand, we've now just rejoined the top 5 cities in student numbers there. And I think that's on the back of the rebuild of Massey, which is great. With international relations, that side is a longer game, and it's supporting our other sectors of business, trade, research, science, amongst others. And of course, our diverse international diaspora communities. So we have large communities here in the city, and the Festival of Cultures is an example of that. But there's a lot of foreign investment in the city too. If you think about New Zealand Pharmaceuticals, Italy, Toyota, Kubota, Hino, Japan, Norwoods and DKSH, the Swiss, Truck Stops, Sime Darby, Malaysia, and Alpine Export Pet Food, China. Now, all of these organisations deal with the International Relations Department and CEDA, and there is plenty of work that goes in the background which sometimes isn't that visible to elected members. And look, I just want to say, and it is an easy target at times, is seen as international delegations and trips. But look, none of that has happened in the last year and isn't planned in the near future. It's actually about what's happening in the inbound space here at the moment. And that doesn't include the sister cities work, which is a pretty small part of the stuff that they do, to be really honest. But it's a small team, there's only 2 of them, but they do a huge amount of work in the background, and they work with partners, and it's that partnerships which is really special for the city. So they really do underpin a really diverse economic sector for us. And I was just speaking at Rotary, and it was interesting just in the room there at Milson Rotary, just the international connections which they could point to, which was unsolicited and was quite interesting. They could see the value of it. So look, I think some of the deliverables have been, and council was asked for those, I think they're starting to show that with international education. I think you'd be hard pushed to say that there's not value there. On the international relations side, keeping our sciences and our research units here is really hard work, and I know they've made quite an impact there. And look, we have to work harder than some other cities in this space. There's more work to do in the trade side, and of course, with our utilising our vast international diaspora communities as well. So I'd ask you to support this. Again, I know there's people that are wanting to question them in the longer term plan, and that's fair enough, but at least for the next year, if we can see some more benefits from this team, certainly in the international relations side. I'll open it up. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you. It comes back to a simple question on this as to what the responsibility of council actually is. International relations is well intentioned, and perhaps it does create the occasional opportunity, connection, and a bit of goodwill. But it's not core council business. Our mandate is local government. We're here to deliver reliable infrastructure, roading, water, rubbish, etc., and ensure the city functions day to day for the people who pay rates. This is what our residents expect, and every dollar we spend outside that core must meet a very high bar. International relations by its nature is indirect. the benefits are often uncertain and difficult to measure. There is no clear line of accountability back to improved services, lower costs, or tangible outcomes for our ratepayers. We can't justify maintaining current levels in this area, but it's no secret that I would like to see us look at this further in the long-term plan, but for now I think 20% is a fair outcome. So I'm more than happy to second this and then refer the rest to the long-term plan next year and we can review the program further. Thank you.
Councillor Bowen.
Question, if I could, Mr. Mayor. Since this isn't touching the two members of staff, what will the $20,000 be less of?
Just getting the GM to respond.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, David Murphy, General Manager, Strategic Planning. As alluded to in the resolution, the department includes two main functions, international relations and international education. This reduction is unlikely to impact the international education component of the function, and that's largely domestic focus, supporting the local institutions. What it is likely to do for the international relations component of the work is make that slightly more domestic focused rather than outbound focused in terms of the way in which we connect with our sister cities and other international connections. There's likely to still be just enough capacity if there was an international connection that was deemed significant and approved by the council, recognising that all approval is made by the council for that to happen. But as I said, the international relations focus would become slightly more domestic.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, didn't mean to come out of that then. Thank you for the clarification through that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing this forward. Although I have to say, as somebody who's been quite challenging in this space over the years, I was actually very impressed by the submissions in support of the international relations and education work that Council has done. I think there have been absolutely valid questions about the benefits, and Councillor Fitzgerald is right to say the benefits, particularly that international space, are uncertain and difficult to measure. There's been a lot of talk in this chamber about what measurement looks like, about how we quantify the benefit that we get. And I think we've lent into what's quite a difficult conversation, and I'd started to feel a little bit more comfortable in that space. So it's kind of ironic that here we are here today looking at cutting that budget. But I think from the officer comments that this looks at reducing our international travel, maybe is what I'm taking from that. That's probably in line with community expectation. I would expect that if there are opportunities that have clear benefits, they would come back through the chamber. And also, if there are opportunities that our business community sees where they would value and see the need for the mayor, the deputy mayor, to attend, and we know that particularly in Asian countries, there is real value to the mayor fronting those, I would hope that we'd see some of our business community being willing to invest in that as well if they do see value there. So, yes, I think, although I didn't expect this to be such a hard one for me, but the submissions were quite compelling on it, so well done whoever chivied those along.
The Deputy Mayor.
Tēnā koe, Your Worship. I'm really a great believer in the International Relations and Education Unit that we have here at Palmerston North City Council. When we had the submissions recently, we had IPU state, Hero, state that they support international relations and education here. Palmerston North is absolutely the champion of international education, supporting development of globally minded individuals who are needed in the world today, and have a reasonable budget. He wanted them to have a reasonable budget to continue their work. Chris Moller, who is the chair of the Principals Association and principal of Queen Elizabeth College, said because they've got their international program up and running, we wouldn't be as successful if we didn't have the PNCC International Relations team. And I do smile because there was only two of them. You know, they do an amazing amount of work. Then we also had Mark Piper from Bioeconomy Science Institute, and he said he strongly supports the continued investment in Palmerston North City Council's international relations capability. It is a strategic enabler of economic growth, global connectivity, talent attractions and regional prosperity, particularly for a city like Palmerston North that plays an outsized role in New Zealand's science and innovation system. Talent attraction and retention occurs here in Palmerston North. International education pipeline, we have it here, and the global partnerships and reputation and the economic input. It brings investment, it brings jobs, it brings resourcing and opportunities. And we have specialists who come here to Palmerston North as opposed to Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch. Not saying there's anything wrong there, but we prefer them here. All the tertiary institutions, and now more so primary schools, and definitely high schools, have relationships that have been brokered in some way or supported by Palmerston North City Council relations team. And that brings in a significant amount of resourcing for those schools. And also for families that are hosting students. But the best value is that interaction and the relationship building. We have sister cities and partnerships that are long-standing and prove to be very beneficial, mutually beneficial. And I think the academic and research links, we have a hub here in Palmerston North, and they have been greatly assisted by our International Relations Education Unit. I'm loath to see any reduction in this area, just got to put it out there. But I also want to state that I'm very supportive of them. Kia ora, Your Worship.
Councillor McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy to support the recommendation before us. I think this is as far as I'm willing to lend my vote on this issue, especially around reduction in this space. While I believe that, or as Councillor Fitzgerald alluded to the fact that this is not core council business, while I get where he's coming from, the sentiment that expressed by Councillor Fitzgerald, I also believe that as a city we need to tap into our opportunities, and also as a council to take advantage of opportunities and leverage on our strength as a city, in terms of being an education hub, an agricultural hub, and also an innovative and growing city. We need to be connected to the world. And as someone who's been a proponent of international relations, and given my background in this sector as well, or in this space, this is as far as I'm willing to go. I understand where Councillor Fitzgerald is coming from around this not being core council business, but I also believe that we need to take advantage of the opportunities and leverage on our strengths as a city, because we're not Napier, we're not Queenstown, we don't have all the beautiful vineyards and attract people here, but we do have tertiary institutions that we can leverage on, and ag research hub that we can leverage on in order to attract people coming into our city and make connections around the world. Thank you.
Councillor Harpiter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be voting against this recommendation. I think the work that the International Department have done for us as a city have been absolutely fantastic. And I think taking 20% off hasn't been great, will be great. So I think that I can't support this recommendation, so I'll be voting against it. I think the relationships they've built up with UCOL, with IPU and with Massey, but also with people out in the business have been absolutely amazing. I just can't support this recommendation. I think it just puts a handbrake on us going forward, so I won't be supporting it. Thank you.
Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will support this recommendation, although, obviously I don't think it goes far enough. I've really struggled to see the benefit, and even with some of the submissions, some of the submitters who spoke in support of international relations, when questioned if they could identify anything that council had done that had a positive outcome. They really couldn't come up with anything. So I think in the current environment, I think reducing the international travel is an appropriate thing. Particularly, I mean, $20,000 is not a lot, but I think I'm hopeful that there may also be corresponding other savings as a result of that, given that elected members can travel under this budget, but staff travel under separate budgets that we don't have visibility of. So there may be other savings through internal budgets as well. If trips aren't happening with elected members, then sometimes that may also mean that staff don't go. So look, I've spoken about this plenty in the past, so you know my position. I think this, in my view, is a small step in the right direction. I would hope that we would maybe address it more appropriately at the LTP. My view is that international engagement could appropriately be managed through the Mayor's office without needing to have a whole department costing $500,000. That would be my future thinking on this, but in the meantime, happy to support this small measure.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, to talk to the submissions we've received, one of the first things you learn in statistics, and you all know my love of stats, is that correlation doesn't equal causation. And so what a lot of the submissions said is, we have an international relations department and we have international students. And wouldn't it be bad if we didn't have international students? You have to do more than that to convince me that that is a causative relationship between the work we do and the output that we get there. And as Councillor Naylor identified, I asked questions to some of those submitters and said, could you tell me specifically what has our international relations work meant for you? How many more people have you brought over? What exchanges have you done? What deals have you struck? Those sorts of things. Any tangible outcomes? And the answers were largely, no, we can't. So the submissions were good, but they weren't enough to compel me that there is a causative relationship between what we do and the outcome. And so I continue to be open-minded to see that causative relationship, and if over the next year we see really clearly, here's work we've done, here's the results. Look, I'm a marketer by trade. I appreciate not everything is going to have a direct, tangible, nail it to the ground and show the benefit. I'm not saying that every dollar has to be justified into a dollar at the other end. What I am saying is, even anecdotal evidence of the International Relations Department did this, here's the deal that we struck out of it, here's the exchange we set up. I like the Wazada exchange that we're running. That's a good example of a tangible benefit, and I'd like to see more of that. So just to say, I feel it often gets conflated in this international relations debate, correlation versus causation. I'd like to see a lot more over the next year to build my, and I think other councillors' confidence that there is a causative benefit for what we do, even if it's just anecdotal.
Oh, look, colleagues, I'll just wrap up. Look, I think economic development is part of local government. I know some of you don't think it is, and part of economic development, if you have a bit of an international outlook, is playing in the international space, putting your toe in. We haven't got a big department. In fact, I think it is the smallest department in the entire council. So, Frederick Nathan proved it in 1926, otherwise we wouldn't have the legacy of what he's put in place. Massey, DSIR, or the CRIs, Fonterra Research. Look, I think as Councillor Micklard said, we are a small city but have an international outlook. That makes us different to Napier, it makes us different to Whangarei, it makes us different to Nelson, it makes us different to some of these other places that have beaches, that have mountains, that have world-class vineyards. So we do have to do different things. What are we really good at? International education, absolutely. Underpinned by our tertiary institutions. I realise we need to show that activity. I do think it gets judged a little bit harsher in this unit, but that's fine. So the coordinated international activity, the recruitment trips, they probably need to document every single thing and put them on a list for you. If you can't understand we've got world-class science here, I think you're at the wrong city. That is our international offering. And the work that these guys do underpins all that. Sir Brian Elwood and Paul Rieger did a lot more work in the 70s and 80s. Go and talk to Toyota New Zealand, go and talk to DKSH, go and talk to Norwood. Why'd they base themselves here? because we have some international outlook. They could have easily gone to Tauranga when they were moving Wellington, or Auckland, or wherever else. Look, this is putting us in a holding pattern. Yes, there'll be more inbound activity. There's less international travel, or international outlook will be a little bit more difficult, but that's fine. And look, I just have to say, there was some significant submitters towards this, and I think if you looked at who they represent, it was probably in the space of about 16,000 students and maybe 5,000 or 6,000 jobs. Now, if that's not valued or significant enough for you, I just don't know what would be. So I hope you can support this. It's keeping it in the council. I know some want to do more. It probably gives the organisation and that team a year to perhaps prove their worth even more. But I hope you support. Thank you. We'll vote. It's passed, 13 votes for and 3 against. Okay, we now have the substantive. And this will be the last one for the day, folks. Right. 1A, that Council instruct the Chief Executive to prepare the annual budget for 2026-27 consideration and adoption by Council at its meeting on the 3rd of June 2026, and it incorporates the following changes to the operating budgets as outlined in Attachment 3 and any motions agreed above. I'm happy to move that, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. There being no discussion, oh yes there is, Councillor Naylor.
Mr Mayor, I'm just a bit confused are we not progressing MNOPQ, which are all operating programs? Are?
This is operating budgets. That's the next one, operating programs.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we will vote on this. There's operating programs is the next group of motions we'll go through. Okay, so if we can vote on what's on the screen, please. And that has passed 14 votes for and 2 against. Okay, we just have to put up a recommendation to... We'll continue the meeting through to tomorrow. Have we got something there that says that? Okay, it's just coming. We'll adjourn the meeting and then we'll continue it through till, I'm going to put midday to be hopeful. Okay, so it's extension of the meeting time. So the recommendation is that Council resolve as per Standing Order 2.1.7 to extend the meeting until 1 p.m. Okay, 1 p.m. on Thursday the 7th of May 2026. I'm happy to move that. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Let's vote on it. And that's passed 16 votes for, none against. Thank you. All right, we'll see you at 9 tomorrow. Thank you. You can leave.